Alrighty team, welcome along to tonight's webinar, 5 weeks to a faster 5 kilometre. Running faster with intelligent training is the key in terms of what I'm trying to pass on the information to you all tonight. If you can just see the screen, it should be saying a picture of a couple of runners with 5 weeks to a faster 5 kilometre, and I'm hoping everyone can hear me. So if you can just write yes or something along those lines in the question box, just so I've got a feeling, making sure everything's working right before we kick into it. Can everyone hear me okay? Oh, brilliant, Jane. And thanks for replying and getting back. That's appreciated. Just while we're getting started tonight, if you can avoid any distractions, Facebook or your phones or other computer tabs open or browsers open. Gail, you can see but can't see anything. What about now, Gail? Is that better? Hopefully, if you can get back to me, Gail, everything should be visible to people now. Oh, brilliant. Okay, thanks for getting back, particularly Louise and Gail. That's appreciated. Okay, so 5 weeks to a faster 5 kilometres. I'm Ray Boardman, often get called Coach Ray, due to my website, coachray.nz, and on there I put a lot of free coaching information. Tonight's webinar is also free. Now, I've been a coach for many years now, but I've been coaching professionally since 2000, and I specialise in coaching beginner and recreational athletes, particularly triathletes and marathon runners, but also a range of endurance athletes, whether you're training for a marathon or a shorter 10K or a half marathon, 5K. So what I'm doing with tonight's webinar is talking about training to get quicker over 5 kilometres, which is a very popular introductory running race that's run sometimes on a weekly basis by a number of running clubs. I know Scottish and Wellington do their famous Tuesday night series. Olympic Harriers also in Wellington do another Tuesday night series as well. In Nelson, there's a few different run options there, and there's one that's just starting tomorrow night. Started last week, sorry, but it's on a Wednesday night. Louise, you're seeing my screen but have lost audio. Can everyone else hear me okay? Thanks, Jane. I'm just going to quickly reply to Louise. Hopefully. Okay, thanks, Gail. Sometimes I'm a little bit muffled. I've got a bit of a head cold at the moment, and I am a bit blocked up. I was hoping I was going to be fully over that by the webinar tonight. Unfortunately, that hasn't happened. So I am still a little bit blocked up, so that's possibly why. I'll try and take big, deep breaths, so I've got a lung full of air rather than breathing in through the nose and not having much puff with my talk, really. So there's a number of events all around the country, whether it's at Hagley Park or in Christchurch, or there's a few different 5Ks series up in Auckland, and then there's also the popular Park Run series that are held in a number of different centres right throughout the country and throughout the world every Saturday morning. And they're all free as well, which is really great. So tonight's webinar, before I just take you through everything, I just want to sort of introduce myself a little bit more. This is myself and my partner on a run. This run was last year around Lake Rotawiti, St. Arnaud in the Nelson Lakes. I live in Nelson, or we live in Nelson, and so we popped up there and ran around the lake for bit of an adventure run. I've done that a few times, and Rachel's joining me for the first time. So we get out and we exercise as much as we can, especially if it's out in the hills, out in the sunshine. And this is a great example of one of our amazing runs together. I touched on that I like getting out into the hills, and I often take my daughter up into the hills with me, and she's a little bit bigger than what she is in this photo, and I no longer carry her in the backpack. So the walks we do together these days are a little bit shorter, but she loves getting into the hills just as much, or anywhere she can see birds and wildlife and ducks and other things to look at, especially if there's pretty flowers. So I like getting out and spending a bit of time with her. But at the other end of the spectrum, I also enjoy to race, and I enjoy running fast. So this photo was taken in the Buller Marathon as coming through Hawkes Crag. Now, I didn't have the most successful day at Buller Marathon, but this photo, I really like this photo. It just says intensity, it just says speed, and it looks like I'm actually running fast, even though I had a relatively bad day at the Buller Marathon this year. So I like the photo, and that's why I've included it in this webinar. So tonight's agenda, we're basically going to cover off training intensity and looking at that. And if you do have any questions at any stage, feel free to write the question in the question box, and I'll either answer it right then and there, or I'll probably defer it until the end and then go through and answer everyone's questions. So if you do have any questions that are burning, I will do a question and answer session at the end, and there's a good chance I might even answer it before we get to the end. After training intensity, we'll look at some of the program groupings, and then look at key workouts, and then look at some other sessions during the 5-week programs that will, and I do guarantee people, if they do follow the program, they will get quicker in that 5 weeks and make some significant improvements. And typically it's between 5 and 10% improvement in getting faster. And I have had people that have ran in 5 weeks, ran 20% faster than what they did 5 weeks beforehand. So there's some big times improvements to be had if things work really well for you. But there's still going to be a reasonable time improvement on your 5K run with, if things go averagely. So a minimum of 5% improvement is what I go with. So training intensity, I refer to my training intensities that I use as level 1 through to 5. And so level 1 is a relatively low intensity. It's a recovery. Level 2 is an endurance pace where you can build and enhance your endurance. Level 3 is a tempo pace, which doesn't have much relevance for a 5K runner, but it's going to be really important if you're training for a marathon or half marathon, because that's likely to be the pace that you do your marathon or half marathon at, depending on how fast you do run things. And then level 4, the threshold pace, and then level 5, which is your VO2 max pace, which is basically your top end that you can sustain. You can run faster than your VO2 max pace in an all-out sprint, but that's only for a very short distance. So let's have a look at level 1 in a bit more detail. So this is the sort of pace that you can maintain a conversation with someone as you're running along. You're not going to get out of breath, and you're going to be able to comfortably maintain that conversation. Both of you, if you're both at level 1, might be running along chatting. Now, it might be that if you're running with the world marathon record holder, you will be running at level 5 while they're cruising along at their level 1 pace, talking away to you, and you're struggling to keep up and even get a word in. So people's level 1s can be at different paces, and you can be totally different from someone you run with. Now, most of your training partners are probably going to be a similar ability to yourself. That's why you've chosen to train with them. So it's really important, particularly if you train with a training partner, that you're working at the same level. Now, level 1, don't need to do too much training at this pace. And if you do need to do recovery sessions, this is the pace you'd do it at. But more typically, this would be a walking pace, and you wouldn't get too much training benefit out of it. So we'll move on quickly and efficiently to level 2. And this is a level where we're going to get a number of changes physiologically in the body. Improving the efficiency of the heart and lungs is probably the biggest factor for someone that's looking at running a 5K, depending on how fast you're trying to run it. That that efficiency of the heart and lungs is going to play a massive factor. It's going to mean you can draw air into the lungs, the body can absorb the oxygen, and then the heart is going to pump it around the body, particularly to the leg muscles that are going to be needing the oxygen to enable you to run faster than you have previously. So having that aerobic development, the efficiency of the heart and lungs, is one of the big improvements we can get out of training. And that's the key, particularly when we're in a base building phase. Now, with the 5 weeks to a faster 5K, we don't have time for much of a base building phase, but some of the sessions in it do encourage you to run at the level 2 intensity for a number of reasons. Level 2 intensity isn't too tiring for you, and you can recover from it reasonably quickly because it is a relatively low intensity, and we get these really good beneficial physiological changes occurring. And the other one is that because it doesn't take much to recover from it, we can train again at that intensity or a higher intensity reasonably quickly afterwards. But some of the sessions I get you to do as part of the 5 weeks to a faster 5K can be quite demanding and quite stressful on the body. Even though they've got some really good rest periods and a lot of rest in them, they do take a bit to recover from. But we'll talk about them in more detail when we get to the slides that are about key sessions. So after level 2, we've got level 3, and I touched on that before in the intro, and being the tempo pace. And it's a pace that you typically run a half marathon, or even some people will run a marathon at that pace or at that intensity. For someone doing a 5K, typically not. So there's not too much to be had, or too many physiological gains to be had by training at this intensity level, particularly when we've only got 5 weeks to make as much improvements as we want. If we had 24 weeks or a long amount of time to build up to it, then we would have a bit more time to build into this type of training into the program. But with only 5 weeks, we don't. There's a few things that will occur in terms of the body's ability to store glycogen in the muscles, and also further enhancing the heart and lungs. Moving onwards and upwards to level 4. Now this is an intensity that starts to hurt, especially if you try and maintain it for a long period of time. But you can hold it for 20 minutes, and some people can hold it for a little bit longer, which is about what most people are doing their 5K in. The majority of people are between sort of 18 and 32 minutes, which is about that 20 minute to a bit past 20 minutes. So it is an important pace to be able to have in your training, because it's what you're going to be using to race, or if we're doing it in time trials, we're going to want to be able to push the limits in terms of how long you can survive at this intensity and how fast you run at this intensity. So at this sort of pace, you're starting to feel the lactic acid increase in the body, you get the burning sensation in the legs, and the body's working really hard to clear that lactic acid out of the system. The heart's beating really fast, trying to get that blood back to the heart, but as it's coming back, it then gets pumped out to the liver, where it gets recycled and resynthesized and can be used as energy. But basically, we want it out of the muscles, getting it away from the working muscles as much as possible. The next intensity is level 5, which is basically the top end. That's the VO2 max intensity I alluded to before. You can run faster than that at an absolute sprint, but you certainly can't sustain it for anything too long at all. At this intensity, you're going to be breathing really hard. In a perfect world, you'll be breathing deeply and getting lots of oxygen in to help clear that lactic acid, help get the energy down to the muscles. And energy is a bit of a misnomer. The oxygen doesn't bring energy per se, but the oxygen can get into what's known as the Krebs cycle, which is a biochemical reaction occurring in the muscle that helps facilitate the use of that energy. So at this intensity, you're going to be really sucking in the oxygen, and you're not going to be able to maintain it for longer than a few minutes. A lot of the sessions we do are a lot of the interval sessions as part of the program are going to be based at this intensity, lifting up your top end speed, lifting up the top end intensity. So let's have a look at some of the program groupings, and I labeled them five colors. black, blue, green, red, and yellow. And they're based on the times there. Now, I did have a bit of a poll, and I realised not everyone's had the chance to answer this because you joined us a little bit after 7 o'clock, but roughly a third of people that answered it are between the 18 and 22 minute mark, fitting in the blue category, another third roughly in the green category, and then another third in the red category, 26 to 30 minutes. Now, it might be that there's some other people that have joined us that can run faster than 18 minutes, or might even run slower than 30 minutes. And there's nothing wrong with how fast or how slow you can run. It's all relative to your personal ability, and we're trying to get you to run faster than what you currently are. So if you're in the yellow and moving into the red, that's just as good as someone moving from the blue into the black. And it might be that you're not that fast. You might be a 25.5 minute runner, and then you move to the top end of the green, go from 25.5 to 23 minutes, which is a massive improvement of 1.5 minutes. Or it might be you're in the yellow going from 36 minutes to 35.5 minutes. You've still made a 30-second improvement, which is a pretty good improvement. So regardless of where you fit on the spectrum and which program grouping, which colour, as long as you're making improvements, that's the whole aim of this program. I'm just going to grab a quick drink of water to try and help keep my voice audible for you all, and I trust it's going all right and it's not too muffled at the moment. Okay, so let's talk about some of the key sessions. Obviously, week 1, we want a high intensity session, but we want to know exactly where we're at. So a 5 kilometre time trial, whether you do that as part of an event, whether it's a park run or one of the other local 5Ks in your area, or you might just go out and use a course that's used by running events, or you might measure out on a relatively flat, straightish piece of road, 2.5 Ks, put a little wee chalk mark or maybe a spray paint mark on the footpath as a turnaround point, knowing where you start and finish, and using that to run as fast as you can out to the turnaround point and then turn around and come back. It's really good if it's on the flat, and then you get a really good time for 5 kilometres, knowing what you're capable of. You can also pop down to the local athletics track and start at the 200 metre mark in lane 1 and run 12.5 laps, finishing at the finish line. And that will also be exactly 5 kilometres. So 12.5 laps of a 400 metre athletic track gives you your 5 kilometres. Run it as fast as you can possibly maintain. Keeping that intensity sustained is the key. If you sprint off at the start and then fade towards the end, you're not going to get the best result possible. We want to see where you're currently at and position yourself comfortably into one of those 5 groups I mentioned, because the key sessions for the following weeks are going to be very dependent on having an accurate time for your current 5 kilometre ability. So in week 2, and I'll come back and we'll talk about other sessions in each week a little bit later on, but the key session for week 2 starts off with a 10-minute warm-up. That's what the WU stands for at level 2. So nice steady endurance pace. And then I'm going to get you to do between 6 and 14 400 metre reps at level 5. So almost maxing out. And then finishing with a 10-minute cool down. Also, once again, same as the warm-up at level 2. So it's just a gentle jog, getting the blood flowing, and then 10 minutes of stretching. Now, based on which colour group that you worked out that you fall in week 1, you just align yourself with the same colour for these key sessions each week. So if you're sub 18 minutes, you fall in the black group and you're going to do 14 reps of 400 metres. And the yellow group, you're only going to do 6, which is going to be a reasonable challenge for people that are at that level, especially at the times I'm going to get you to try and do them. So black, you're going to be trying to do 1 minute 10 to 1:20 for every single one of those 400 metres. I know you'll be able to run 400 metres faster than 1:10, but you probably won't be able to sustain it after a few reps. But I want you to be able to hold 14 reps, keeping them all under 1:20. So that's why I've got the range of 10 seconds there for you to try and maintain it in. And each group, blue has got the 12, green's got 10 reps, red has got 8 reps, and you'll notice the target times are getting, they're staying appropriate based on your ability. So they're getting slower than the group previous because you run your 5K a little bit slower. Right down to the yellow group that has got 6 reps, and their target time is between 2 minutes 2 seconds and 2 minutes 12 to run the 400 meters. Now, these are very achievable, even though you might look at those times and not have much of an idea of how fast you can run 400 meters. They're achievable times, but they are going to be a challenge to do that number of reps with the amount of rest. So, using the example of the black one there, because it's right on the top, they're starting each 400 meter rep for all 14 reps every 3 minutes 20. The first one starts on 0, 3 minutes 20 you start your second, your third one you start at 6 minutes 40, and then the 10-minute mark for the next one. And you just keep following that through, running them in 110 to 120. So if you do run them in the 120, you're going to get 2 minutes rest every single time. If you run them quicker, you're going to get more than 2 minutes rest. But I urge you to err on the side of caution and don't sprint them absolutely full noise, because you'll find you're not going to get enough rest because you're exercising at a too high a pace. So stick in the zones there, the 10-second window. Try and stick within that as much as you possibly can. Right down through to yellow, target time of 2:02 to 2:12 for each 400 meters, and you're starting each rep every 5 minutes and 31 seconds. Now we can probably round these to 5:30, or if you're red, to 5:15, but they're based on a proportion of rest based on how quickly you're typically going to get through them. So I'm trying to be as precise as I can. I've put a few groups through this program as well and seen some really good results. When we sort of rounded it out a little bit, people they had more focus when you've got that preciseness in it, and so people stuck to the structure of the session a lot more accurately as well. Whereas if we rounded it, people sort of got a little bit more blasé. So that's another reason why I've kept the target times as they are, and also the start time for each of the sessions. Week 3. Now this is if we look on the left for the workout, there's a range of different intervals over a range of different distances, and depending on which group you fit in determines the number of reps. So if we look, everyone starts with a 10-minute warm-up, once again at level 2, and then a 10-minute cool down at the end, once again at level 2, followed by some stretching. The difference is in between the number of reps that everyone does. There's 800 meter reps first, then 400 meter reps, then 200 meter reps. And they're all done at level 5. And the faster you ran your 5K, the more reps and the faster pace those reps are going to be at. But some of them there's a lot of subtle differences between. So black, you start with 3 800 meter reps, followed by 6 400s, then 5 200s. Blue, 2 800s, 6 400s, 5 200s. Green, 2 800s, same as what blue had. Green, you've got 4 400s and then 5 200s, which is the same as the previous two groups. But what's different is your respective target times for the different distances. Once again, they're relevant or appropriate based on your current ability as you determined 2 weeks prior in the 5K time trial. Red, you've only got 1 800 to do, same as yellow, and then you've got 4 400s and then 3 200s. In yellow, you've got that 1 800, and then you've got 3 400s and 3 200s. And I should have mentioned on the previous slide, actually, 400 meters, you can do 1 lap of the athletics track, or you can measure out on a flat piece of ground 200 meters and go out to it and back. When it comes to doing this session here, easiest way is to do it at the athletic track. 800 meters is 2 laps of the track, 400 is obviously one lap, and the 200 meters is half a lap. But you can just measure out 100 meters and go out and back for your 200, 200, measure that out, and then out and back for your 400 and 400. You could either do the 200 out and back again, or measure out 400 and go out and back. Now the target times are relevant to your ability, but you'll notice this target times for the 400 meters is exactly the same as last week, but the rest, the time that you're leaving on, is different. So if we look at the black, that was going on every 3 minutes 20 last week. When you get into the 400s, you're going every 2 minutes 40. So you've got 40 seconds less rest after each of the 400s. So it is applying a different stress to the body, and it's going to get a different enhancement out of it. So you're going to be challenged in a different way. But you don't have it anywhere near as many 400s. And when you come to doing the 200s, you'll be quite appreciative of the fact that you're only doing a lot shorter distance. But you've got those 800s that start off the session in terms of the intense side of the session. And they're going to require a lot of effort to focus on running that fast for those first few, or 3 for the black, 2 for blue and green, red and yellow. You've only got the 1 rep to do, but it's still going to be a solid, hard effort. And then you get the rest afterwards of an appropriate amount, and then you're into those 400s with less rest than last week, and then you've got the 200s to finish off with some good speed. So that's week 3. Week 4 is very similar to week 2 actually, except we've just increased the number of reps by 2. And so black, you're now doing 16 reps of 400, blue 14 reps, green 12 reps, red 10 reps, and yellow you're up to 8 reps of 400 meters, sandwiched between that warm-up and cool-down. And I might be brushing over the warm-up and cool-down a little bit here, but it's the same for each workout. We need to get that blood flowing initially, and it's an important part of the workout. If you haven't warmed up, you're not going to get the most out of the session. You're going to spend the first few reps basically tricking the body into believing that you're ready to work out when in fact you might not be. So don't skip that warm-up by any stretch of the imagination. And the final week is going back and doing another 5K time trial, or maybe as part of a race series. It's going to fit in nicely, and you can do that 5K time trial again. That will be your end state. That'll give you the final measure to make sure and to confirm that you've improved. And you can look at, say, yep, I was at this point, and now I'm 30 seconds quicker, or 45 seconds, or 2 minutes, whatever the case might be. So 1 workout a week isn't going to be enough to do that. So it's important that we include other sessions into the workout. A key workout is a long run. And for people that are only training for a 5K, a long run is anything up to sort of an hour. You don't need to be going much more than an hour if we're looking at performance enhancement for 5K. Some people might just be struggling to get to that 5K point for a workout. And when I say struggling, that's a challenge for them. But if we can build from that point up to an hour, that'd be really good. But if you're already at a position where you can comfortably run for an hour, then continue doing so. If you're using this training to get quicker as part of training for another, maybe longer event, then you should also be doing your longer runs, targeting and appropriate for whatever that event is you're training for. Another session I get people to do is a steady run, and depending on their ability, I get them to do anywhere between 30 and 60 minutes for their steady run, and often progressing from the start of the program through to the end. And so you're getting progressively longer, getting more volume in a training week as your body gets fitter and develops. If people need a 4th session over and above the key workout, the speed session that we've just discussed for each of the weeks, I include a technique session. And if you just go to my website, coachray.nz, and search for 10 by 100 meter stride outs, it'll come up with this workout, a Friday fartlek workout that you can read through. And it's a great session that gives you an opportunity just to keep this speed smooth and flowing. It doesn't provide too much stress. It actually is quite an energizing session. So typically 3 sessions a week is what I recommend: the long run, steady run, and your speed session. But if you do need a 4th session, include that, the stride out as a technique session. I also wrote an article a few years ago that I called 3 Little Pigs. It's more targeted at cyclists and looking at the 3 key workouts each week for cyclists, but it effectively applies for runners as well, although that workout's not, the article I wrote is not targeted at runners, and you'll see by it talks about going out for bike rides, going out for a long bike ride. Just replace long bike ride with long run, or and you'll get the picture in terms of the physiological benefits that come from it. So there's a link down the bottom there. You probably can't click on any of these links. So if you just go to coachray.nz and there's a search box near the top on the right, type in 10 by 100 meter stride outs or 3 Little Pigs, and these are the articles that will come up right at the start there for you, and you can have a read over them. So that is in effect the guts of the program. So if you want, you can go ahead and do that program and follow it perfectly. Like I've mentioned at the start, this is a free webinar, so you're more than welcome to take those workouts and go do them and go experience the improved running, the improved speed, the faster times over 5Ks. If you do, I really encourage you, just touch base with me and let me know how it went. Or even as you go, touch base, drop a message onto my Facebook page, Coach Ray /Qwik Kiwi Facebook page, and let me know, hey, I did the 5K time trial last night for week 1, and this is the time I did. Looking forward to seeing what I can do in the future. And then as you work through the program, let me know how your times go and how it's been going. Really keen to hear from people about that. The other option I've got is you can sign up on coachray.nz, and at the moment it's only $27 a month, and you can save 37% until Friday. The price on that's going to go up. And as part of that, you get access to all my training programs, and you can load any number of them up onto your calendar. And every fortnight I do coaching calls that you can jump in on and talk about your training and have me answer a whole lot of questions. So go to coachray.nz and then click on the sign up on the top right if you're interested in taking advantage of that special price through until Friday. And the price is going up by $10. So you're saving that $10 a month if you join before Friday. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to type them in the question box, and I'll go through and I'll be online the next half an hour or so answering any questions you might have. I realise we don't have a large number of people online today, so it's an opportunity to get some quality one-on-one, or basically one-on-one time with me. So thanks for attending. I hope you got something out of it. And if you've got any questions, type them into the question box and I'll answer away in the order they come up. Hey, thanks, Louise. I'm not sure what happened with the audio. It's all working from my end, and a couple of people commented at the start that that they still had it. I'll hopefully have a recording up. I'm just going to type this in for Louise because she can't hear me, and it's just dawned on me that I'm talking to her and she can't hear me. So I'm going to let her know that hopefully the recording worked, and she will be able to listen to the recording. Thanks, Naf. No problems at all. And I did see a couple of other questions there that when I tried replying to Louise, that those other questions dropped off. So if you did just ask a question and I haven't answered it, can I get you to type it again, please? Sometimes I have technical issues, and that appeared to be one of them. So thanks for joining us there, Jane, Louise, Peter, Gail, and Naf. Appreciate you spending the time and attending. We did have a few more people booked, and a couple of people did touch base via email to say they couldn't make it. So feel free to ask away any other questions. And as those questions come through, I'll answer them. And if you've got no further questions, then I'll leave it at that and we'll wrap things up. No worries, Gail. Appreciate that feedback and that you found it informative. Can't wait to hear how you get on as well. So make sure you touch base and let me know how it goes. No problem, Peter. Thanks for the info. When buying running shoes, is it recommended to buy a pair half a size bigger? What I do recommend when you're buying running shoes is that you go to a technical running store, somewhere like Shoe Clinic. There's a few other places around that do a foot scan and can put you on a treadmill and analyze your running gait, your running style, and seeing how the shoes change that and make it more efficient. And what a place like Shoe Clinic will do is they'll measure your foot, they'll get you to run on the foot scanner, they'll scan your foot and look at what, using the knowledge they've got, and they've got a really effective staff training program to give them the knowledge to say, hey, look, these are the types of shoes that are going to work best for your foot. These ones aren't going to work too well for these reasons, but these are the ones I recommend. And they'll bring out a few, probably from different brands as well, and give you a couple of different options to try on, see how they feel on your feet, put you on the treadmill and actually video what your shoe is doing and seeing how that's moving on your foot. So when you're going through that process, Peter, I recommend you wear the types of socks you'll wear when you're running. Now, if you're running long distance, I'm talking for a couple of hours or more, your foot is going to swell a little bit. So that is something that is going to need to be taken into consideration. But if you're just focusing on 5Ks, you don't need to worry about that too much because it's not going to swell significantly in sort of a 20 to 30 minute run. So take the advice from the staff, the knowledgeable staff, and also have a look, talk to them, get them to show you on the video why that shoe is better than the other shoe that you've tried on, and challenge them and look at different shoes. If you're not feeling 100% comfortable for whatever reason, then ask for another shoe from another brand, but get something that you are fully comfortable about when it comes to buying shoes. And that's my advice in relation to that. But all the shoe manufacturers make really good shoes, all the big ones anyway, whether we're talking Asics, Adidas, Nike, Mizuno, New Balance. They've all got their own sort of niche area. New Balance are really good at making shoes that fit wider foot, but they also make standard width shoes as well. So, and they've all got shoes that suit similar foot. So if we look at, in terms of my foot, I'm a reasonably neutral runner. So when I'm running an Asics, I use the Nimbus. But when I've got some Mizunos, I'm in the, I can't even remember what my Mizuno one shoe is now. I should know off the top of my head. When we're looking New Balance, I'm in the 880, which is a neutral shoe. So I'm looking for slightly different things out of the different shoes depending on what I'm going to be doing the running in. So each of the brands have got shoes that are all similar sort of, well, not all the shoes, but at one end of the spectrum, they've all got shoes that are designed for neutral feet. They've got supportive shoes and shoes with a lot of structure. Although if you do need a large amount of structure, Brooks take things a little bit further than the other brands with their Beast model and have a lot more support there for people that do need more support. So talk to the staff that know what they're talking about and try a few different shoes to get a good feel for it, and talk to the staff as the advice around getting shoes there, Peter. So hopefully that's answered your question. But if you're only doing shorter runs, I wouldn't worry too much about the half size too bigger. But if you are getting out for a few hours or more, then that's an important consideration. Jane, no problems at all. Glad you enjoyed it. No worries, Peter. Glad you could hear that clearly. Hopefully other people can hear as well. It's not just my cold that's affecting the clarity of the audio. Whereabouts do you live, Peter? Hastings. Awesome. I'm not sure if there's a shoe clinic in Hastings, but the one over Napier, I don't know the owner very well, but he's a really good man. I've dealt with him on a few occasions. I don't know any of the staff over there, but he's, really top bloke. So pop over to Napier, let them know that Ray Boardman from Qwik Kiwi sent you, and yeah, so all the best with that, mate. Hey, awesome, Louise. I'm glad you can hear finally, and you sorted whatever that was. Like I typed in the reply, there'll be a recording that hopefully has worked and that you can have a full listen into there. The ability to maintain the intensity comes down to your fitness level as opposed to your age group. So you say you're running 23 minutes in your park run, so that is pretty damn quick, regardless of which age group you're in. So that I do have a couple of other ladies that are similar age to yourself, a little bit older, that are running similar times. So that's, like I said, a really good time. I'd be happy with a 23 minute at the moment with how I'm feeling. So that's really good. So your ability to maintain those distances, so in the green. So if you were to look at, say, the 400s on either week 2 or week 4, hitting that target time of 136 to 146 is going to be achievable for you. Doing it 10 times in week 2 and then 12 in week 4 is going to be a challenge, with the turnaround of 426 towards the end of them. It'll be more challenging if you run the first few reps faster than that 136 and just go all out. If you went all out for a 400, you could probably do them at about 120, based on the fitness you've indicated. So I don't want you doing them super quick, but I do want you being fast and consistent, and that's going to be the key to the success. If you're running them too fast, you're not going to get through to the end and be able to maintain them. You'll be running them slower than 150 and maybe even 2 minutes before the end of it, which will mean you get less rest. You're not getting the most out of it whilst you're working, so you're really making it ineffective if you go too fast at the start and then finish too slow. But if you can be nice and consistent throughout the middle, then that's perfect. Peter, you'll go and see the staff in Napier, and thank you very much for the advice and how to improve my running. No problems, my friend. Keep in touch. Love to hear how your progress goes. Yep, definitely, Louise. Consistency is the key. Your name is familiar. I'm not sure if you're at the webinar 2 weeks ago where I talked about training for the spring challenge. That was one of the key points I brought out at that. If you weren't, a lot of the key points still apply to running. And so feel free to go back and watch that video. It's on YouTube. It's also on my Facebook page, Coach Ray /Qwik Kiwi. And consistency is the key. And I talked about that right at the very start of that webinar. You definitely don't want to be blowing out after the first few. Awesome. Thanks, Peter. I appreciate you keeping in touch and letting me know how it goes. So I see the majority of you are still all online. That's really great. If Jane or Gail, either of you have got any questions, feel free to type them in. Louise or Peter, you're more than welcome to ask more questions as well. So if you do have anything else you want me to touch on, I'm happy to talk about that. Okay, no further questions are coming through. I'll hang around for another minute or so. If people do have other questions they currently typing. So if you are currently typing a question and sending it through, either type it quickly and get it sent, or just hit the enter button and then continue typing, just so I know something's coming. Louise, all good. We'll look things over and we'll definitely keep in touch. I follow on Facebook so I can keep track. Awesome, great to hear. The recorded version should be on there tomorrow morning if things have gone well, so keep an eye out for that. You can also jump on Strava as well if anyone uses Strava. www.coachray.nz, smiley face on Strava. Instagram, I'm at coach_Ray_NZ. Twitter, at coachraynz. And my website, www.coachray.nz. So keep an eye on those. Lots of information and content gets pumped through those for people to benefit from. No further questions have come through, so I'll start wrapping things up. Another 30 seconds if anyone does want any last comments or questions. I certainly will. I'm probably going to go to bed the way I'm feeling, Peter. Get a good night's sleep and hopefully recover well and be fully over this cold by tomorrow morning. And hopefully yourself and the other attendees also have a great evening. So thanks for that. Appreciate it. All right. Good night, everyone. I shall see you in the next webinar in a fortnight's time, which will also be voted on in the Facebook page to determine which is the most popular topic for me to talk about in a fortnight. Cheers.